Hello everybody, welcome back to our channel. This is Christopher Vagale here from Agritech Organics Papua New Guinea Limited. On this video tutorial we will be discussing two very important elements of our blockchain. Firstly, the Kumulcoin blockchain itself, and secondly the accompanying blockchain explorer, which works hand in hand with the Kumulcoin blockchain, which allows you to check your balances, check transaction histories, and also has a cool feature for APIs which you can then use to integrate with HTML websites, mobile applications, etc. and etc. Now, to begin with, I think a good starting point would be the Google Cloud Platform, which we have utilized to host virtual instances of both the Kumulcoin blockchain and the Block Explorer. Now, through the course of this video, we will be discussing in brief what the Kumulcoin blockchain is all about, how it integrates with the Block Explorer, how we run nodes, and other very important aspects of the Kumulcoin blockchain which you may or may not have already read or heard about. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Before we continue our discussion, I just want to discuss briefly how a blockchain works. Now, beginning with the user, a user requests a transaction of any sort, whether to send or to check their e-wallet balance, whatever the case may be. It begins with a request. Now, this request is then represented by a transaction on the actual blockchain itself. This block is then broadcasted via nodes on the network, and then through a process of mining, nodes validate the block and transactions before the block is actually written or created onto the chain of blocks. Now, that's where the name blockchain is taken. It's simply a chain of blocks containing the transaction histories of the blocks that preceded it. Now, after the transaction is written onto the blockchain, the transaction then gets verified and executed. Depending on whatever the mechanism is, or an example of that would be like a smart contract, for example, for Ethereum. Now, in the case of Bitcoin, that results in the transfer of the cryptocurrency from one e-wallet to another. Again, as you can see, the blockchain begins here with the user. A new block is created. This block is then, after 10 minutes, is added to the blockchain, and through a process of mining once again, multiple computers validate and confirm transactions before writing these transactions onto the blockchain prior to execution of a particular condition. Now, when we talk about nodes, just by looking at this illustration here of a cryptocurrency called blockchain, we have different types of nodes that are currently running on a blockchain on any given point in time. Now, you have firstly full nodes or miners. An example of this would be the Bitcoin Core node, which individuals, miners alike, are able to download and run. What this node contains is the full copy of the entire blockchain or Bitcoin blockchain itself. So, as you can imagine, the number of transactions that have taken place on the node and the size of the actual blockchain itself. So, in order for a person to actually run a node individually on a computer or a mining rig, they firstly need to download the node itself, which is a software, and then they need to synchronize onto the blockchain. Now, this can take from as little as a few hours, even days, depending on the processing power of your infrastructure. Now, there are other nodes that run which are lightweight, which don't necessarily download a copy of the entire transaction history of the blockchain, but allows you to tap into the blockchain using very limited resources on your computer. Now, for a node or blockchain to operate, there needs to be at least one node online 24/7. What that allows us to do is, once a client installs a new wallet and it goes live, it connects directly to this node. Okay, so as a good point of reference, we must also understand that each node on the blockchain is somehow connected to each other and to the clients. That also maintains the integrity of a blockchain. So for example, if one node goes down, the other ones are able to pick up the slack in its absence. Now, in contrast to centralized systems where a system is run by actually one node or one main central database, if that goes down, the whole network goes down. So that is one advantage of running things on a node and on a blockchain. Again, this is another illustration. What the blockchain node that we will be running on the VPS is simply just a copy of the blockchain itself, which allows clients to connect to it in order for them to participate and to transfer peer-to-peer. Now, that's just on a minimal level. Minimum amount of nodes for blockchain to operate is 2, but you can have multiple, even thousands, even hundreds of thousands worth of individuals and nodes running at any given point in time. As you can see on this diagram, this is a simple transaction process, beginning with the buyer. The buyer then invokes a transaction, which then initiates a process of crypto hashing. Again, miners are responsible for this process, distributed then onto a ledger, validated, and then transaction is executed and funds are sent now to the seller. Okay, now that we have a basic understanding of what a node is, its functions, and how in general a blockchain operates, let's get back to our discussion about the Kumulcoin blockchain and its accompanying blockchain explorer. Now, as I mentioned previously, we have opted to utilize Google Cloud platform services, specifically the VM instance, to run our virtual private server, or VPS as it is commonly known. Now, we have 2 VPS instances running, one containing the Kumulcoin blockchain node and the other containing the blockchain explorer interface. Now, the blockchain itself can be accessed through SSH, like so. While that is loading up, I just want to explain that in our previous video we were utilizing AWS or Amazon Web Services. We've decided on this video to give Google Cloud platform a go. So here we go. The principle is more or less the same. Once the node is uploaded onto a VPS, we can simply access the nodes via SSH to tweak or to make changes or to write different code as and when we deem necessary. Now we've actually accessed the Kumulcoin node. So let me just type a command to list what is actually written or stored in this particular VPS or node. So if I click ls, it'll list down what files I have. So the Kumulcoin file is the actual software itself, which was written in C++. Later on I will share a link to GitHub where you can download a copy of this software and run an instance on your Ubuntu operating system locally. Now let's just see what files are contained within the Kumulcoin folder. We can do this by accessing the directory itself by typing the following command. Okay, now we're in the directory of Kumulcoin. Let's also view what's in this directory. Okay, now these are different files that make up or are contained within the Kumulcoin directory. Now we're interested in this particular file here, so let's also navigate into that file like so, and then let's list what's in here. Okay, now these are all the files that is contained in the SRC folder. Now we're looking for a file called Kumulcoin D. Now this is the daemon that actually runs the blockchain. Now I think it is currently running, so let's just see some statistical information about how many blocks that have been mined, etc. So let's type in the following command. It's pretty basic stuff. If you know the individual commands, I can always share this with you at some point later on, but for the purposes of this video we'll just go through very quickly. Okay, looks as though we're having a bit of an issue with our server. Let me just check if our server is actually running at the moment, which I believe it is, because from our local client I am actually mining right now, and you can see that it's synchronized with the tick in the corner here. So let me just check that again. Let's try running our server. Okay, so the server is now running. Okay, now let's try getting some information about that server. Type in the previous command. Okay, now as you can see, we are one connection, which is the local instance of the Kumulcoin which I'm running on my local machine, and you can see that with the connection you can see that it's mined 980 blocks and it has a balance of 2000. Now the command to run mining on this node is as follows. Set generate. Oh, my bad, left out one command at the end there. There you go. So now the coin is set into mining mode. You can do the same thing on the GUI by simply going into the coin, go to help, debug menu. You can type help here to see all the individual commands that you're able to invoke. We're interested in this one here, set generate, because this is the command to allow our actual node to mine crypto. So you would invoke this command by simply typing set generate true. Set true, like so. Okay, so now we're mining. You can close that off, and as you can see, synchronized, etc., etc. Okay, now let's have a look at our block explorer. Now in a similar fashion that we accessed our Kumulcoin node, we shall do the same for our VPS that is containing the block explorer, and have a look at what it's made up of. Now let's click on our SSH. Okay, now that's taken us into our VPS. So let's have a look at what files are currently contained in this VPS. So let's do the same thing that we did in our Kumulcoin node by typing ls to list down the files that are contained here. As you can see, we have an Explorer folder. Now this Explorer folder was more or less a template. It was a template that I discovered on GitHub. What it allows us to do is download from a repository a ready-made template of a block explorer. Now the block explorer will contain all this coding and There's programming involved in developing this website. After doing so, the only thing left for us to do is simply put in our own information in, and we will be able to have something that we can truly own. So without further ado, let's have a look at what's contained in the Explorer folder. Again, our cd command followed by the file that we are trying to get into. If we ls, we can see the files that make up the Block Explorer. Now, there are other dependencies that need to be installed before this this particular Explorer can be executed using npm and other commands, but for the interest of time, let's just go very quickly to the heart and soul of what makes this Explorer uniquely Kumulcoins. So as you can see, there are two files here, settings.json and settings.json.template. This file was the initial templated file which contained Explorer specific information for the default Explorer. Now I've made a copy of it, called it settings.json, and I've tweaked it to my own specific requirements for our blockchain, Kumulcoin. Now for security purposes, I will not open up this file, but I will open up its template file so you can see basically what it contains. So in order to do that, we invoke the services of an IDE called Nano. So with Nano, you're able to access files such as .json files and others, and basically amend or tweak some of the coding in there, making it taking into account your own specifications. So let's just copy the name of the file, and let's just Control V and paste it there. Now once you press enter, it takes you to the default settings of the JSON file. Now these settings more or less dictate what information will be presented when you click on the particular link that directs users to your Block Explorer. Let's just look at some of the headings now. The first is the title, Equitas. This is the manufacturer of this particular template. Now, if I hadn't removed this and put my own, it would be showing up here as Equitas. But I've tailored it to blockchain, Kumulcoin Blockchain Explorer, so that's what's showing right now. You have the option of changing the IP address, but for now we'll keep that as it is. This is its IP address that it will run locally, but we will set the IP address of the actual VPS itself on the Kumulcoin Block Explorer, okay, allowing users to access the blockchain, the Kumulcoin Block Explorer. Okay, we've got the name of our coin there, and the symbol, other things like the favicon. Favicons are things like this. I haven't changed ours yet. I'm still working on that. That'll probably come later after I finalize the coding. We have the database itself that contains all the information on this blockchain, on this Block Explorer. As you can see, Equitas is the username by default, and then you have the password, the database name, the IP address, and the port that will be used to entertain transactions. Now these are all default. When you download the file from GitHub, all this information is contained. In our version of this particular Explorer, I've changed this to my own specific details. That's just my own preference. So, okay, you've got other information pertaining to your wallet. Again, IP address, the ports that are going to be used, the user, and the user password. That's all very important. Let me go back down to another important part of the code. Now, for the API to work or be valid, we will have to input some information in here relating to a specific transaction. So what I've done here is picked out any transaction, and you will do the same when you do your block explorer, and then you will copy across these specifics relating to the block index, hash, address, and other details that are specifically for a particular transaction on your e-wallet, which is this thing here. Now you would get that by simply coming here, transaction, and clicking on any one of these transactions. Let me just go to one transaction I did, which I was able to do the day before. Let me see, here it is. Now this was a transaction that I did, so you can simply click, not this one, I think this one, let's see, show transaction. Now all these details here are contained within this particular section of this code. Now what this allows us to do is synchronize what is contained on your block explorer and what is actually on the node, blockchain node itself. Now this is a very useful part of the explorer, because in order for the explorer to now be able to display some of the information that's captured within the blockchain, the Kumulcoin blockchain, it needs to somehow synchronize. And with the information we provide, the block explorer will then be able to more or less index itself against the data that's on the blockchain and make that data available to anyone who uses the block explorer. So this element of the code is very important. I took a bit of time because there's a bit of going back and forth, but I managed to get it synchronized. Apart from that, other specific details which again your own preference, and finally the code ends. So Control X to get out of there. We haven't made any changes, so you don't ask you to save anything. So that's the code. So now you see how the actual explorer is linked to the Kumulcoin blockchain itself. So there you go, everybody. That in a nutshell is how the Kumulcoin blockchain and block explorer work. I know there's a lot of content that we've covered, and because of time constraints we are unable to go through the whole process, but hopefully in the near future we will be able to provide something more detailed and be able to go a step further in actually getting each and every one of you to create your own cryptocurrencies as well. Now if you like this video, please feel free to subscribe to our channel and like this video. We thank you all once again for your support. The support has been overwhelming. As you all know, blockchain and cryptocurrency is a new concept, technology, but we are doing our best to educate our people and to provide the awareness required to adopt some of these technologies for our own benefit. So thank you once again, and God bless you all.